Hi folks. Last week in the United Kingdom, Dr Hilary Cass released an independent report known as the Cass Review, which made a series of recommendations on how to improve NHS gender identity services for under 18s and ensure that children and young people who are questioning their gender identity or experience gender dysphoria receive a high standard of care that meets their needs, is safe, holistic and effective. It was a landmark review that found children have been let down by a lack of research and remarkably weak evidence on medical interventions in gender care. Afterwards, I spoke to a number of experts in the field here in Australia who called for a similar review to be launched by the Prime Minister. Firstly, the National Association of Practicing Psychiatrists, who admitted the number of young people who are seeking this treatment is low but trending upwards, and called for an independent investigation into the use of treatments, including puberty blockers.
As a result, we've now got a substantial base of information of which Australians and the Australian government, with advice from the various professionals who work in the field, can make up our minds as to what we should be doing with our children and adolescents.
Another psychiatrist I spoke to, Dr Andrew Amos, called for a complete overhaul of gender services here, as the problems for gender dysphoria lie elsewhere.
You look at the person as a whole, you look at the reasons that they're expressing gender dysphoria, which could include trauma, could include things like depression and anxiety. You diagnose the issues that are causing the gender dysphoria and you address those. Often, for example, it's problems within the family, something bad may have happened, or it may just be tension. And the overwhelming majority of the evidence suggests that if you treat those underlying causes, the gender dysphoria will resolve.
Back to the UK review, and Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling felt vindicated by the Cass Review and let her opponents know it. On X, she said, over the last 4 years, Hilary Cass has conducted the most robust review of the medical evidence for transitioning children that's ever been conducted. Mere hours after it was released to the press and public, committed ideologues are doubling down. These are people who've deemed opponents far right for wanting to know that there are proper checks and balances in place before autistic, gay and abused kids, groups that are all overrepresented at gender clinics, are left sterilised, inorgasmic, lifelong patients. She went on to say, even if you don't feel ashamed of cheerleading for what now looks like severe medical malpractice, even if you don't want to accept that you might have been wrong, where's your sense of self-preservation? The bandwagon you hopped on so gladly is hurtling towards a cliff. The consequences of this scandal will play out for decades. You cheered it on. You did all you could to impede and misrepresent research. You tried to bully people out of their jobs for opposing you. Young people have been experimented on, left infertile and in pain. Rowling also took aim at some of the stars whose own livelihoods were built on Rowling's work, including actors Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, who've been steadfast in their support for trans rights. Transgender women are women, Radcliffe said in a blog, while Watson wrote on Twitter, trans people are who they say they are. Well, and Adam Harris responded to Rowling by asking if she'd get an apology from the actors, quote, safe in the knowledge that you will forgive them. Well, Rowling doubled down and said, not safe, I'm afraid. Celebs who cozied up to a movement intent on eroding women's hard-won rights and who used their platforms to cheer on the transitioning of minors can save their apologies for traumatised detransitioners and vulnerable women reliant on single-sex spaces. One of those detransitioners is Sinead Watson, who spoke passionately on this and warned about the many dangers during a speech filmed in 2021. Here's part of it.
45% of the people who responded to Ellie Vandenbush said that they felt that they had not been properly informed about the health implications of transition before being handed cross-sex hormones and surgery. Over half, 55% of the people that responded to Lisa Lippman said that they would describe their evaluation as inadequate. So it's the evaluation process is poor, and I can tell you why, because I went through it myself. It's because of affirmation only. You can walk into these clinics and say, I've been horrifically depressed and suicidal for several years now, but it's because I was born in the wrong body, and they'll go, okay, cross-sex hormones and surgery. More than half of the people who responded to the Ellie Vandenbush thing said that they had at least 3 diagnosed comorbid disorders at the time of evaluation, with the most prevalent being depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, such as PTSD. Why wasn't that addressed before they were allowed to transition? 38% of the people who responded to the Lisa Lippman one said that the reason why they detransitioned was because they realised their gender dysphoria had been caused by trauma, abuse, or other mental health issues.
And once again, social media has a role to play here, as Bernard Lane observed in The Australian around 2010 to 2015, when teenagers began to spend more time home on social media and less time in the rough and tumble of life outside, clinics started to witness an unprecedented explosion of would-be gender patients. He goes on to say, meagre evidence, no real consensus among clinicians, and a risk of lifelong harm to children. If this isn't enough to prod our politicians towards a national inquiry, they may find it harder to ignore the negligence lawyers and medical indemnity insurers. Thanks for watching. To support this channel, please like, share and subscribe below. See you next week.